Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today to learn a bit more about TeenTurn. Before I hand you across to Joanne, I just want to give you a little bit of context around why Hayes got involved and why we believe it's a great initiative to commit to. So just a bit of background on Hayes' journey in relation to diversity and technology. About 4 years ago, I was talking to one of my colleagues about the skill shortage and the fact that there were more jobs than there are people, and that this situation was going to look likely to continue over the next number of years. And we really had a brainstorm around how we might close that gap between jobs and skilled individuals to do those jobs. So one of the things that we looked at was our database in relation to participation rates of women in technology jobs. And one of the things that we found when we just looked at the data, the raw data, was that less than a quarter of participants in the technology sector in Ireland working in technical jobs were female. And actually, when we drilled down into areas like software development, that dropped as low as 7%. So we thought it would be interesting to take a deeper dive on that, and as a result, we conducted a survey of over 700 women and produced a report, Women in IT, an answer to Ireland's skills shortage. And then from there, we sort of got involved in a number of different things, and a couple of summers ago, it resulted in Anno Day of Silicon Republic introducing me to Joanne and talking about TeenTurn and the principles behind TeenTurn, where they effectively wanted to give women or young women from underprivileged or disadvantaged backgrounds the opportunity to experience what working in tech was like in order to improve the pipeline of talent and obviously have some impact in society in relation to giving people that don't necessarily get the opportunity the chance to work within the tech organisation. And in the first year, I suppose the challenge was around awareness, but primarily around organisations to host these Internships. So in the first year, we worked with Joanne, promoting to our customer base organisations that were working with the idea of TeenTurn. We had good participation rates. We went back last year and did exactly the same thing, and increased the numbers very significantly last year. I think we had around 65 Internships last summer, which was fantastic. And here we are again this year, where we have even more interest from the deaf schools who provide the talent, the individuals that want to take part, and we're back speaking to our customer base to see if they would support us once again this year in providing opportunities for young women to experience what technology was like, or career in technology is like, in order to give them the opportunity to consider whether this is something they want to do as a career. So the girls don't necessarily, or haven't necessarily made up their mind that they want to have a career in technology. Some have, but they've been sort of recognised through the TeenTurn screening processes of people who would be appropriate for the programme. And without wanting to take away from Joanne, what I'll do is I'll hand you across to Joanne now, and she can talk you through why you should get involved, why it's the right thing and the smart thing to do for your organisation to get involved in the summer of 2018. So over to you, Joanne.
Okay, so we'll just start off with CSR, and most companies would recognize that this is something that's vital now to all organizations. And Harvard Business Review featured some work by Porter and Kramer, actually encouraging not to be shy about seeing it as also an opportunity. It's not just a PR exercise or to warm the cockles of your heart, but you can also see it as an opportunity to contribute to potential and future competitive success. And TeenTurn is very much, we're not opportunistic, but we like to emphasize that there is a huge opportunity here to create a future talent pool that is attached to this area, who would be individuals who would want to stay in Ireland. So you have this opportunity to tap into a new talent pool, change the ratio in terms of gender and social inclusion, but also gain employees who would be very tied to the region and would improve maybe the retention rates, because so many employees sometimes aren't from Ireland or from the area and eventually want to return or move on. So if we go to the next slide, then we just say that it's CSR as an opportunity that's important for competitive success, then it's also a very good thing to do as well. So we'll continue on to the next slide. And these are the stats to which James was referring earlier, and the studies from which they came, is that we know that there's a need for tech professionals and there's a deficit of women in technology roles. So we have, over the next 6 years, will be 44,000 job openings in ICT, and then it says that women in STEM roles is less than 25%, but actually in tech roles, it's about 6 to 7%. So it's an even lower number than that. So we'll go to the next slide. And then we have another category, which is that low-income students are much less likely to pursue third level. There's an uptake of about 15% in Cherry Orchard Valley Permit, for example, and that's all third level. That's not just third level, actually. The 15% in Cherry Orchard Valley Permit is actually anything after secondary school. So we're talking about a very large possibility of, here, I'm going to change. Seems here that hopefully people can hear me better. I see there's a message that there's a strong echo. So we're talking about a very low level of third level course uptake, and Teen Turn is very much dedicated to, got you there, Laura, better sound quality. Teen Turn is very much dedicated to promoting third level, but also post-secondary school coursework and qualification programs like FETech and other courses, because we are working with girls for whom university may not be the right answer, and we want to make certain that we're taking that consideration, but also because a lot of those 44,000 tech jobs are technician roles and different kinds of tech roles that may not require a sort of a university degree as well. So if we can change to the next slide. So the objective is to tackle the need for ICT professionals in Ireland, the deficit of women in technology, and bridge that divide between the corporate and community, and invite those who are living in the areas alongside these flourishing tech companies and other companies. We want companies that have tech within their walls but may not necessarily be a tech company, to encourage third level progression and post-secondary school progression in disadvantaged areas, which will be will contribute to the overall economy as well. So we have a lovely quote from James, from whom we've already heard, but it helps address gender equality in the tech sector, and it gives participants a chance to work with some of Ireland and the world's most successful organizations. So the next slide. How do we do this? So we're trying to influence course decision-making choices. And so we're trying to show them what these careers entail, because a lot of show and tell, single-day events, visits to schools, while they do have impact, and that's very good. They're like Lisa Looney from DCU, Dr. Lisa Looney, did some studies and determined that it's really grasping what a STEM career is what eventually affects course decision, as well as SFI has done a study about fitting in. So this is to work with girls who can learn and visualize themselves in these types of careers and grasp what they are, what they entail, how to get onto that career path, and then address this mindset about fitting in. After spending 2 weeks in these offices, these girls come away with this belief that they can fit in, and mindset, which is coming out of Stanford, very strongly is a massive influencer when it comes to those from disadvantaged communities, because even when they have the test scores to go on to third level and university, even very competitive courses, sometimes the message at home is, what would you want to go on and do that for? So we're competing with an entirely different kind of series of obstacles. It's not just the typical getting girls into STEM challenges and hurdles that have to be cleared. There's a few more there as well. So we go on to the next slide. So 15 is the age. So there were something like 30,000 girls all over Europe who were surveyed by Microsoft, and they identified the ages 15 to 16. So we were looking at 15-year-olds. We approached girls who are in the summer after junior cert, so before choosing leaving cert, before TY. This is when we can get them before they turn away, so we're turning them back towards possible STEM studies, and we're getting them excited and interested, and we're getting them early enough old enough so that it's not, they don't change their mind again, but early enough so that it's before they make their Leaving Cert courses. Now, sometimes they think they know already what they do or do not want, but these we've learned from these placements that they do influence them. So the next one. Unfortunately, I have a child here. There you go, Peppa Pig is back. Sorry, folks, about this. I work from home in the mornings and the early afternoons, so sometimes we have guest stars on my conference calls. If we could change to the next, this is the slide, a quote. So each placement, this is how we do it. Each placement is assigned a female mentor because we know that role models are strong influencers with young girls. And the idea is that if we expose them to someone either senior or very junior, but who's actually doing some kind of work in technology, project management, working in the kind of environments that involve technology, that this can really affect them. And it also influences what their decision-making processes are. And so part of it is also that they get a chance to do some hands-on work, because hands-on experience is very influential, and they blog about it. So, and the reason they blog, and we have the blogs, are all private. The companies can choose to release them later if they want. They're private. They're not available to anyone other than the girls and whomever they give the access to. And why we need them to blog is that a lot of studies have gone into determining what makes things stick, and diary writing, journal writing is very effective. Actually, it's the most effective exercise in impacting what somebody is learning at the time. So the blogging helps them internalize the experience, think about what they're seeing, and also help the learning process. They kind of start looking up what it is to which they've been exposed and reading more about it. So we incentivize them to do it. It's mandatory, but we also give them a prize to the best blog at the end. And we always have a very good prize. Like last year was an iPad mini. But it gives them a chance to show what it is they're doing, and we also don't then need to have to survey them, which sometimes produces artificial results. We know from 9 to 10 days of blog entries exactly what's going on, what kind of transformation is happening, how they felt at the start, how they felt afterwards, what their relationships with their mentors are like. So it gives us a little bit of an insider view on what is going on with the girls while they're in the placements without having to create an artificial sort of follow-up through a survey. Now, we can do focus groups, which are also a good chance to learn what they're experiencing. The surveys are, the blogs are extraordinary sources when it comes to learning about how this program has impacted the girls. So the next slide. And this is another quote from one of our participating companies, and about how they see this opportunity and what it can do. So we'll continue. In the next slide, please. So as the girls have difficulty grasping what a job in STEM is, and it affects their course choices, putting them in these jobs or around these jobs will really make an impact and make an improvement on this kind of perspective and understanding. So the next slide. So by experiencing hands-on through Teenternship, what it is to contribute to the technology they use, they can understand how they can be part of the technology development in the companies that are next door to them, because this is very important. Teentern, we do it by geography. So we have the girls going to companies that are very close to where they live. And unfortunately, many disadvantaged communities are alongside a lot of the larger business parks, and yet no one from those areas are actually passing through the doors of these companies. So this is creating that bridge that I was talking about initially, that's that separation from the community and the corporate, that they're alongside one another, but they're not necessarily interacting. So the next slide. And then there's a quote here about one of the girls. We're more than happy to share the blogs that the companies have allowed to be online in our after material that comes from this. And you can see what some of the girls have done, and as well as you can see the impact. You can see the real transformation from the first day to the last. And then the next. And then we work with girls from deaf schools. Now, I'll tell you how this in particular is important. We work with the schools. The girls do not apply to us.
We do not interact directly with the girls during the application process. The schools determine who would best benefit from this program. So we're not getting the girls who already do BT Young Scientists. We're not getting the girls who already know that they want to study physics at UCD. These are girls that the schools, particularly school completion officers and guidance counselors, have recognized in them maybe an aptitude for STEM subjects, but they haven't confidence. Maybe they're from a home where they're not encouraged to pursue post-secondary school coursework, and so this would be very beneficial for them. It would not only give them the aspirational experience and push them towards this, but it may be that difference before they've kind of written themselves off from doing any kind of post-secondary school studies. So these are girls with a lot of potential, but they may not believe in themselves. They may not come from backgrounds where this is encouraged. So they're selected from the schools and very thoughtfully selected from the schools. So we have a very unique cohort in that these are not the girls you're going to see who are already putting themselves forward for these kinds of opportunities and internships and placements. And that's important because once we start working with them, we like to get them TY placements later on. We have after-school programs, so we keep them interested after, but we start with the work placements. We get them excited, we get them that confidence and that self-belief from the work placements. Next slide. And so this is our sort of, to sum up, more girls from areas where third-level education is uncommon. Gaining an interest in technology has the potential to lead to more women earning these qualifications, thus contributing to more women in tech as well as more women from these backgrounds in tech. So, and the next slide, please. So again, some more quotes from those who've participated. I'll kind of go through those. We'll let people observe them and move on. But it is an opportunity. You are creating a potential future talent pool that's local and very much so could contribute to that kind of talent retention as well. And the next slide. What you do get from it, though, other benefits is obviously all of the visibility that comes with it. We were on 2 national news broadcasts last year. We've been in newspapers. We also have photography that's been done by someone who's trained in child protection practices, so we can share that content with you. We know that many of our partners have put some of what they've experienced onto the LinkedIn and other inter-office and inter-company communications. So and we also give our metrics. We have a lot of good metrics that come out of this from our focus groups and from our blogs and from what we're doing. So the next one. And then this is just sort of a review of what we offer. The participants who've been identified by the schools, we will work with you to make certain that protection of young persons in employment, children first legislation, GARDA vetting, all of that is covered. And that's very important, and that's what's unique. In addition to the cohort we're offering, we work with you to make certain that all of those boxes are ticked and that you needn't be concerned about all of that legislation, because we have definitely worked with, now we've worked with 31 companies through all of their legal and HR, so we know we have a very airtight hosting agreement, and we cover all of the things that you need to keep in mind in order to have anyone who's underage coming into your office for a work experience, because sometimes it sounds like it's that much of a challenge, but it's very important to make certain that everything is in place that is in keeping with legislation and regulations and all of those guidelines. So we work with you on that. And then, of course, we provide you those materials, and all of the girls go through an induction prior to their placement with you, where we go through behavioral expectations and how to blog and non-disclosure. And then at the lunchtime period of that induction, we invite representatives from the companies to meet the girls prior to the placement, so that they can have at least a little bit of a hello and some introduction to you before they show up on their first day. And that is a fantastic networking event as well amongst the mentors before the girls come in, because they get a chance to meet with each other and exchange information and just talk. Other women in tech, it's a good thing. And then the companies are to provide a female mentor, experience on some kind of technology project, or even if it is a separate project just for them to spend time on that is in keeping or relevant to what you're doing in your company. That always works too. We have had companies who kind of give them just a separate challenge that they can work on the 2 weeks that wouldn't necessarily be a part of what the company's actually doing, but it is in the same field. And then the only cost that we have is that we ask you to make certain the girls are fed during the day, that they have lunch, and that they have their LEAP cards with money on it, or a bus ticket, or some of them are walking, so it's public transportation isn't an issue, but that their public transportation costs are covered. We're cash free, so we ask you not to give the girls cash for some very particular reasons that have to do with from where they come anyway, but that this is cash free. There are no fees. We don't charge anything, but we don't want them paying out of pocket for the experience because they simply might not have the money to do it. Even just getting to work in the morning, that may be too much money for them to spend. So that's the only thing we ask, is that their public transportation is covered and that they're given lunch every day. And that afterwards that they're given some kind of completion statement to say that they were there, what they did, and something positive that they can take away, which is something we found that the girls are really stoked about when they get there, even better than their completion certificates or anything else. They really like the little completion letter. So it's very important that they receive them. And then, again, they're all after junior certs before they've made their course choices. And I think that's the end. Is there any other slides? No. So we'll open up for questions, I think it is.
So participants can lodge questions via the platform. I already have a couple here, Joanne, and they seem particularly relevant. So the first one is, when are the teen internships taking place for this summer? What are the dates?
So the dates are the 30th of July to the 10th of August. There is a bank holiday in the second week, so it's actually 9 days instead of 10. So it's the 30th of July to the 10th of August. There are inductions the week of the 23rd. Dublin is the 23rd. Cork is the 25th, and I believe Galway is going to be the 27th. Limerick is the 23rd is Dublin, the 25th is Cork, the 26th is Limerick, and the 27th is Galway.
All right, you've just preempted the second question, which is, are there opportunities outside of Dublin, which clearly there are. It's nationwide. Question here, do all employers in the office need to be Garda vetted, or only the mentors?
Actually, none of the above. Provided you're never alone in an unobservable space, you need not be Garda vetted. See, it would be impossible to actually have work placements in Ireland, full stop, TUI work placements, if everyone who interacted with an underage child would have to have Garda vetting. You'd have, especially with open plan offices nowadays, you'd have 300 people who need to be Garda vetted. So we have very detailed advice on how to go about this, but, don't offer them a lift anywhere. Sorry, I have to be careful. Don't mean elevators, I mean cars. So you wouldn't drive them anywhere. If you're going on, say, a field trip to a site, we give you advice on how to go about that. But the key to it is that you're never alone in an unobservable space, and I can send on the actual legal language for that so that it's clear. This is why sole traders can't have TY placements, and they also can't have teen turn work placements.
Okay, that makes sense. Do companies take on more than one girl?
I'd highly recommend that you take 2 girls if you can, just because it makes it less intimidating for the girls. It also helps you if you need to send them off to go do something and leave you alone so you can actually get your work done, because we appreciate you are all employed and have to do your jobs as well. So yes, more than one is encouraged. 2 is a great place to start. We do have companies that have have 6 girls, that kind of thing. But if it's your first year, I'd recommend taking 2.
Okay. Here's a specific question. It's what's the mechanism for providing expenses as companies are not supposed to give them cash? E.g., what should companies do if there's no on-site canteen?
So what we've done in the past for companies that don't have on-site canteens is we give them a prepaid credit card. We can either buy that one for you and then invoice you to reimburse us, or you can buy one yourself. It depends on your your HR, whoever is doing it, whatever is easier. And that has covered girls who have, and we have a fair percentage that would be at companies where there aren't on-site canteens, and that's always worked. Another company actually came up with a rather clever, actually a few have come up with this now, they've also come up with they get a vouchers at the local, whatever, Subway or bistro or some places nearby, and they get like, 9 vouchers or 1 voucher from a well-known local area eatery, and that always works as well. So either the prepaid Visa or food vouchers. I think even a one-for-all might work in certain locations if you knew for certain that there'd be a food provider that accepted.
And there's another question in relation to travel. I mean, you mentioned earlier about a lead card. That's the primary way of doing it. I mean, I know there's been occasions before where we've had placements where, there isn't a lead card type of option, and, we provided taxi transportation to the place of work. Anything to add on the transport side?
No, I think it's public transport is pretty easy. That's usually covered just with a lead card. And as you mentioned, we will work with a taxi service. There's some taxi services in Ireland that already provide transportation for children, and so they have all the sort of approvals in place, and then they just, it's a taxi. We did have that, particularly for the sort of business parks that are kind of well outside a city center area.
Okay. And okay. Specific question here. Can there be 1 mentor per 2 girls, or is it strictly 1 mentor per girl?
1 mentor per 2 girls is fine, as long as they have a mentor assigned to them. I think you'd be spreading yourself a bit thin if you had 6 girls, but 2 girls and a mentor is great. It's more than great. Any chance that they're exposed to a female role model is going to be good.
I think we found, haven't we, in terms of feedback we get, that actually having two girls rather than 1 is more manageable in lots of ways, because they can work on projects together and what have you. So they're not as reliant on the mentor all of the time. So quite often we recommend that rather than just taking 1, which can actually end up being more work in terms of sort of making sure that they're engaged. The final question I got, and it's the best one, is what are the next steps for registering?
So the next steps are you can email contact@teen-turn.com, or I know there'll be some follow-up materials sent to everyone after this webinar that can give you some more information. But yes, the most direct way is to email contact@teen-turn.com. And let us know of your interest, and we can start the process.
Yeah, we'll send up a follow-up email to everybody who's attended, right? So the web address for Teen Turn is also just if you want to visit the website, it's www.teen-turn.com. And if you're on Twitter and you want to follow us, the Twitter handle is @TeenTurn. So we'll send some follow-up with those details, right, so that you have a vision on them. But yeah, please do engage with us. It's a fabulous scheme. We've seen real impact from both the organisations and the girls that have participated over the last 2 years, and we really need your ongoing support in order to make sure that we can continue to have that impact. So I think that's all the questions answered. Thank you, Joanne, for your time. I know you've had your hands full. You've been drugging in there in the background, bit of a BBC moment, but it shows how busy our lives are, and the level of commitment you're putting in, as well as everything else you have going on. And if everybody on the call, could express an interest in doing this, we'll be a long way to going to placing all of the girls that have an interest in taking part this year. Thanks a million,
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.